Lovely morning to you. Thank you for joining us and Off the Press this morning. Take a look at the papers and try to make sense of it with the help of a guest. Thanks again for joining us at Plus TV Africa. I have with me Martin Lomba, a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the program.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Good morning. All right, let's get to it. We have the Punch and some other papers. Just start with, of course, expectedly, we have the xenophobic attacks actually on all the papers that we have this morning. We have the Punch, the Vanguard, the Nation, and This Day, and all of them is focused on the xenophobic attack. The Punch has it xenophobic attacks. 83 protesters arraigned. South Africa blames drug dealers. And then the Vanguard says South Africa dares Nigeria, says no compensation for victims. But let's just focus a bit on the Punch newspaper so we can actually take it in piecemeals. Underneath the screamer that's on your screen now, we have nationalized ShopRite, MTN, others. APC urges federal government. We're unaware of attacks on South Africans. That's police reacting. That's it now. You're looking at it. We also have a government alerts Nigerians to fake videos on killings. Attacks, threats to cooperation in Africa. That's ECOWAS also reacting to the ongoing spree. And then we have this not so palatable picture on the front page showing truck destroying a Bielsa bridge, cutting off community. Apparently, the bridge was already precarious before this incident occurred. You can see the crowd of people in the background looking on at that very unsightly scene. We also have other headlines here, but I'd like to get your thoughts so I don't just drone on. Let's hear this rider to this particular, the way the xenophobia is being picked on here.
I think that if we are not very sensitive to the situation in South Africa, we may miss the point. South Africa, the blacks in South Africa, they actually need help. They need help. By that I mean that all of the years of the struggle, anti-apartheid struggle, most of the blacks were not really exposed to excellence, so to say, education and all of that. It's the same thing we are more or less saying about northern Nigeria, the Amajiri, situation. For most parts of South Africa, the blacks are having a raw deal. So we need to be sympathetic about how the South African blacks are squaring up to the economic hardship. That is on the one hand. Then you also have to look at the challenges that have to do with drug addiction, that have to do with the HIV scourge, that have to do with all manner of things. They are in a disadvantaged position. For the rest of the world, it seemed as if the struggle was to gain independence for the blacks. But the truth is, when you're free, politically, and you're still enslaved economically, for me, you're in a more precarious situation. So I would suggest that most African countries should try and see how they can give support to the South African blacks. And this is especially because the whites are not willing to cede any, if you like, any inch of their economic advantage. But
they are the ones that seems not to be allowing this. If you need help, is this the way to go about it?
Well, to a large extent, if you don't understand the dynamics of economic struggle, you will find fault with their agitation. For them, it looks as if even the small crumbs that we could have managed, outsiders who have come with excellence now, remember what I said, they don't have it. These outsiders have it. They can reach out to wherever and they make things happen. So for us in Nigeria, all this talk about nationalize their assets, we don't need that. I think we should emphasize more on giving assistance to South African blacks, and that could also mean that the economic integration, we need to emphasize more on it. We need to pour in money there and we will see the difference. All of this will just end.
Okay, you already touched on one of the riders that I wanted to take you on, but there's still something else, the fake videos of killings that is all over the media
Very
at the
true.
moment.
That is also another thing we need to guard against. Some of these videos that we see, some of them might have been years back.
Yes, there are some that are alleged to be from like 2010.
Very possible, very possible. So, you know, the whole idea is that if you see a video, you should be able to do some kind of background check, and it will help all of us in the narrative so that we understand precisely where we're coming from and where we're headed. You know, that's the way I see it.
All right, let's
Meanwhile, sorry, on the Bayelsa, this bridge, I'm familiar with that bridge. I think that for me, it is quite an embarrassment that Bayelsa, the state capital, Yenagoa, still has this kind of structure. To start with, that bridge cannot support the weight of that truck that eventually made the bridge to collapse. But I think that the Bayelsa state government, as an oil-producing state, as that has a capital that is relatively not bigger than Festac town, you know, this is quite a disappointment. They have no business having this kind of structure, you know, in Bayelsa state, anywhere in Bayelsa state, as a matter of fact.
All right, let's just glance through some of the headlines and then we'll jump to the next paper. We have the P&ID captured here again. It says the AGF demands contract details from CBN, 13 ministers. You find details on page 11. And then we have Nigeria tragically living on borrowed time. That's a warning from the World Bank. The details also on page 28 of the paper. Second quarter Nigeria's investment inflow dropped by 3. Second quarter in Nigeria's investment inflow dropped by $3.2 billion. That's National Bureau of Statistics there speaking. Let's go to the bottom and see what's there before we move on. A wanted man appointed into MC Olomo's NURTW panel. That story sort of made some wave yesterday because some of them protested. They were not happy with the situation. Let me just mention this story here. We captured this in our bulletin earlier. There will be another of it later if you would like to catch details or you read it. Of course, no police officer should die fighting criminals. Your quick thought on that before we move on.
Well, the job of a policeman is supposed to fight criminals. And if the criminals are stronger in the exchange of gunfire, obviously, some policemen will die. But I want to believe that if the police are adequately equipped, properly trained, they shouldn't be dying. They shouldn't be dying.
Okay, on the back page of the Punch, you have Wake Up Leaders. So 100 days have passed noiselessly. Go read that.
These 100 days have been relatively dull across board.
There's so many distractions. We have what do me. We have a xenophobic attack. We have $9.6 billion.
It's not true.
It's not true.
If you wear a shirt, it's dirty, you change it. It's as simple as that. You know, if you came with an agenda, if you came with a plan, if you had a blueprint,
you would have shown
all of this is
right now.
In fact, across board is a huge disappointment.
Yeah, but we did hear a bit from the Ekiti. I think is it no, I don't think it's Ekiti. Makinde. Which state is he from?
Oyo State.
Oyo State. Yes.
The fact is that he is a relatively young governor. And for the right reasons, he has been doing a few things correctly, apparently. Appointing a young commissioner and also saying things, declaring his assets, and all of that really don't translate to economic fortune,
I've seen some really nice things.
But again, well, some breath of fresh air, but across
not enough.
Nothing.
All right, the Vanguard has also South Africa. There's Nigeria says no compensation for victims. A couple of riders to that story as well. We must do everything to ensure victims are compensated. That's the foreign minister speaking there. But of course, South Africa, according to the Vanguard, is daring us to say that there will be no compensation for victims.
That's just a screaming headline. But you know from what we said earlier, the South Africans, the blacks, they need help. Just like the Amajeris in northern Nigeria need help. You know, all these cosmetic things that we're doing, they won't help anybody.
Yeah, the situation with World Economic Forum, I don't know if you've been following it. Nigeria pulled off. Today, we have this headline that Xenophobia pulls out of World Economic Forum events.
For now, a number of people, I wouldn't really say that they are playing to the gallery, but if they have some input to give there, they should go ahead and give it.
Yeah, obviously, Kwesili is there. We also hear El Rufai is there.
As a former World Bank, as a country, we can pull out. But if they are resource persons and they have contributions to make, I don't think that Africa should lose any moment at this point in time. If these people have some inputs, they have things to share, they should go there and share it. We need all of the help we can get on the continent.
All right, let's see some other headlines. Labour rejects FG's plan to concession 22 teaching hospitals. Southeast governors won't apologize to IPOB. That's Umai speaking. We also have this one on business. NSC reclassifies Owando as low-price stock. If that interests you, you find details inside the Vanguard. Insecurity, be committed in fighting crime. IGP task Southwest governors, monarchs. Katsina resident Islamic scholars seek divine intervention on banditry. And then Lagos tragedy, that's one that trended for a whole lot of reasons. Surviving child of family of 7 dies. I watched a little clip of the public relations officer yesterday talking about the possibility that they used sniper. He said that's the investigation is ongoing, but that he used it as some sort of insecticide and then closed all their doors. It could be contributory to that, but it's quite sad to have an entire family.
It's quite sad, and you know, the environmental conditions in Nigeria, in Lagos, you know, leaves much to be desired, and so people are trying all kinds of things. Apart from what they used to take care of their rooms and what have you, they also take all manner of things, ingest all manner of things, and it's not the best.
The nation is next. Of course, we have the South Africa here as well. South Africa rules out redress as government moves legal option. We have $9.6 billion. Danjuma declined P&ID's share offer. Gas project, my original idea. I read something on Bloomberg on that as well, and the background was amazing. Did you see that?
Yes, I saw it, and it will appear that there's some fraud, and the young man, the owner, the Queen man, you know, has been, you know, he has been involved in all kinds of scams. To that extent, if Nigeria can bring this to the fore, you know, I'm sure we'll get
might help us get out of it.
I don't see the possibility of us paying a dime in that money. I don't see.
Well, let's see how things play out.
The
but
only thing
with
is that,
unraveling,
the only thing is that if the legal people, the judges abroad, if they use Nigerian standards, then we can't escape, because, you know, we bring in technicalities. If you knew that these issues were present, why didn't you come and, you know, make your case? You never did that. Now the train has already left the station and you're saying we must revert back, you know.
All right, let's see other headlines. It said IG's red card for kidnappers in Southwest. Families abandoned mentally ill in jail. A little bit of sports is also there. Permit knocks Onyekuru out of Ukraine tie. Bandits offer to swap victims with members. Southeast governors, IPOB, can't ban travels. On the back page of the Nation newspaper, we have engaging the African diaspora, part 1. That's for you. And then we also have something on Towolu and the Greater Lagos Vision, and then open forum also on the back page. Is there something you want to speak on quite briefly before we move on, because we're almost out of time?
You know, the central issue, of course, is this issue
Xenophobia.
of xenophobia. And if the South Africans are saying that they are ruling out redress, it's all about the talk of compensation. You ask yourself, in Nigeria, how many of the victims of these tragedies we have been seeing have been compensated? Have we set a good example domestically to even now demand from South Africa that they should compensate people? In Nigeria, if we want to be honest, government would rather compensate the perpetrators of the crimes. You remember the story?
That's a very strong stance.
No, it is what it is. You know, we're all here. The former internal affairs minister, he headed a delegation. They went and held a meeting with the Meheti Allah group, and they said, okay, they will accept 100 billion. What are we talking about? you know. So for the South Africans, left for me, redress how, compensate how, what is the template that they're going to operate with, you understand? And again, some of these issues in South Africa, if we want to be honest again, you know, they have some root in crime, they have some root in drug, they have something about prostitution rings and all of that. For goodness sake, let's just face the reality. Nigeria has not been a shining example that can command respect, that can command, you know, that kind of thing. If Nigeria is interested, like I know that Air Peace has volunteered to airlift Nigerians for free, if the Nigerian government is willing, you know, following from what I said earlier, the Nigerian government can compensate our citizens that are coming back and support their businesses, seriously speaking.
That one, I doubt very much.
I also doubt it.
All right, we go to this day newspaper. We have, again, the xenophobic attack captured here. Xenophobic attacks threaten $60 billion Nigeria-South African trade. A couple of writers to that. Buhari Special Envoy leaves for Pretoria. Rainbow Nation closes Nigerian embassy. APC calls for nationalization of SA businesses. Before we just go ahead, let's look at this part about, and you mentioned it briefly in passing, but I'd like you to expatiate a bit on it. This call to nationalize South African businesses, is it really necessary at this time? How does this affect this trade agreement that was just recently signed?
Let's look at it this way. Some Nigerians have a way they think, you know, economically. We're all in this country, you know, all the chain stores that used to exist by that I mean Kingsway, UTC, Leventis, a good number of them have died. Now a South African company came into Nigeria, started their chain of stores, and look at how far they've gone. I know that I did business with them initially, and I also know how serious they take their businesses. They used to bring in perishables. I believe they still do that on a daily basis, you know, from South Africa. And my responsibility was to take to their, you know, first outlet here at Lekki, you know, take the perishables same evening to, you know, their store. And look at the arrangement, fantastic. Nigerians were asleep. Now, we are talking about nationalizing. Some people are just angling to take over their business, and I won't be surprised they won't be able to handle the business with the seriousness that it requires. So to that extent, we have no business tampering with anything that belongs to the South Africans. If we do anything to it, chances are the business will crash. On the one hand, I think that for African countries, the continent is big. We need economic integration apart from social and political, if you like, alliances. We need that economic integration. It is what will help the continent to tackle poverty. Very important. Okay, this interesting one says, finally, DHQ panel on Taraba killing submits report. Details on page 10, the Wadumi situation. Well, better late than never. Better late than never. But I also think that there is one headline there that's interesting. Not so clear, yes. Which one? Article Rights Tribunal yes, urges early delivery of judgment on petition. That's on the front page. Article just above the head, masthead there. There you have it. Article Rights Tribunal urges early delivery of judgment on petition. On page 9 is where the details are. And then, of course, the Xenophobia withdrawing from the World Economic Forum in South Africa. Let's hear your thoughts on the Article Rights Tribunal. I think that the way this particular case has gone, you know, all of the issues have come to the public fore. And some of us have already reserved our judgments as far back as maybe 2 weeks ago, so to say. And you begin to ask, what is really going on? There shouldn't be so much quiet about the tribunal giving a judgment. And for me, you know, some of the issues that came out, if we really handle this case the way it should be handled, it will help our jurisprudence. It will help the continent of Africa. It will help to give pride to the black man, you know, anywhere in the world. But this delay is not going to help issues. And I dare say that there's one particular thing that I need these justices to pay attention to. And that is something similar to what happened in Zamfara. For instance, they said some of the APC people or whatever, they misbehaved, they didn't handle their primaries very properly. Therefore, PDP now took the cake. In this case, this presidential case, there is something that looks similar to that. If for any reason, looking at the surrounding events concerning a particular candidate, and there is some odium about that candidate, I beg to ask the justices to do the right thing.
Well, let's hope for the best and see what happens with that one. And on the back page of this day newspaper, we have Femi Gbajabiamila, guest columnist today, and he's writing about, in defense of country, that's $9 billion judgment debt. There is a quote from it: filing a claim against a contractual partner where you yourself are arguably in breach of the same contract is an unacceptable denunciation of the good faith and fair dealing principles that are at the heart of contract law. That's an excerpt from it for you. You might want to go read and hear.
I think I understand what he's saying. You cannot say that you want to do business and we're on both sides. You're on that side, I'm on this side. While you're doing yours, I should be seen to be doing mine. Apparently, the contractor, didn't do anything. Yes, he failed on that score. So,
All right, let's see what's for sports. On sports, rather, we have the complete sports here, and we also have the back page of the Vanguard sports newspaper. But let's start with the complete sports and see what's on there. Liverpool plots a Jan move for 40 million euros. Shuku. It will be mocked by Everton teammates in training. New Eagles goalie Okoye concedes 5 goals in 2 games. And then we also have Chelsea rakes in 133 million euros during summer window. Fabregas, I felt I belonged at Arsenal. Bayern to return for 135 million euro Sani in January. Failed Barca move left Neymar in tears. Which of these would you like to just glance at?
I would just want to talk about the organization of our sports in Nigeria. Apparently, we have allowed, sports dream of yesteryears to die. Because I remember when I was very little, I know that in those days I used to join Molue, as a matter of fact, from Ajegunle to the National Stadium to watch some of these our local teams play. And you'll be shocked to know that the stadium used to be very full. And I'm surprised that all of our papers, don't really carry much of that. But again, they can't do much because we have bastardized, the local organization of our sporting activities. I know that the National Stadium, main bowl, you can't do anything inside of that place. It has been allowed to rot. Same applies with the Abuja National Stadium. For goodness sake, I don't understand. I feel that some of these things, the best way to maintain them is to put them to use. Anything you do not use, you actually attract rot to it. And as a country, we must know that sports is big business. We need to pay attention to it and then make it happen.
And your quick thoughts on the EFCC investigation of NFF. EFCC investigation of NFF began before PNIC board Akinwumi. Onyekuru joins withdrawals from Ukraine friendly, and then Mercy can leave back for free.
Well, the only thing I can say is that why would the probe take this long before PNIC, and we're still on it and we haven't really heard anything, even if it's an interim report? It is quite offensive the way we make it appear as though investigation is some ritual. You need to bring in a tortoise, you need to bring in palm oil. It's annoying. What does it take to bring a report, even if it's just an initial report, to say that these are the findings that we've made so far? For goodness sake, we need to take some of these things more seriously. And if we don't have competent people in that place, we should get the people that can bring results. For heaven's sake. That's the way I see it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lomba, for coming on the program.
A
pleasure to have you join us. And before we zap out of here, let's see the Mr. and Mrs. cartoon. I know you like it too, not just me. The Mrs. tells the Mr. on Vanguard, by the way, Vanguard newspaper. It says, it's an evening dress and for only 250,000 naira. And the husband says, for how many evenings? For one dress, you're supposed to have 250,000 naira. Well, that's some people's, should I say, how many months pay? All right, that's where we wrap things up for this morning. Thank you for your time. Do take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Felicity Ezewuike.